Hello and welcome. Today we're going to talk about faith. Faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. The Bible tells us that God gives every man a measure of faith. It also tells us that faith comes by hearing and hearing the word of God. So today we're going to hear from Dr. Derek Russell. And we're going to hear his story and his journey on how he didn't even know what he was looking for. But faith came to him. God used faith and found him. This is real life. All right, first of all, I want to thank you for coming, man.
Hey, no problem.
When you think about doctors, a lot of people in the Christian community right off the bat go, okay, they're a doctor, so they're not believers. But you are a doctor who is a believer.
Correct.
Right, how do you incorporate your faith with your practice?
Well, I wasn't always a believer. I became a believer August 2003. That's when I made my faith commitment. Before that, I didn't really think of, how do I put it? Well, if faith wasn't part of my practice, then I didn't really have to incorporate it. That first year, I think I wore it more on my sleeve as far as, I wanted to just talk to people about my own trip and my own, my walk versus how it was going to help them. Now, I get a lot of non-believers that come into practice. So when I talk about healing, I say, hey, I always kind of preface it with whatever you believe in, whether it's your meditation or prayer, which is what I would use, that's a major part of healing. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how I incorporate it now.
So how exactly did you end up finding faith then?
The long walk. I grew up in what we called a Christian family. We went to church periodically. I don't know if you guys, C&E Christians, Christmas and Easter Christians.
Right.
Some of that. My parents used it more as a Band-Aid. They ended up divorced. I think they sought out church as a way to help their relationship, and I think we as kids saw that, so it wasn't something that we were very excited about because it didn't really apply to us so much. We saw it as maybe a Band-Aid for our parents' relationship, but throughout my adult life, it seemed like I always dated girls that were Christian. I liked that type of woman. I liked more of the pure, they held something higher than themselves. I don't know why I was attracted to that. I know now why, but at the time it was kind of weird. I meet these girls and, I enjoyed spending time with them. It was this type of person. I was like, yeah, I could spend my life with that type of person. Not necessarily with those particular individuals. So I guess they witnessed to me in a way, because most of them either would take me to church, they would, talk to me about their faith, even though at the time maybe I was a little bit apprehensive. High school, I did Young Life just because it was fun. We enjoyed going there. They'd share the gospel a little bit, but mostly it was just fun.
Yeah.
And then finally, I guess, what was I coming up on? I was almost 30 years old. And that year, my 29th year, just something, you always hear people talk about, something was just missing. Something that just, I wasn't feeling fulfilled and I wasn't feeling satisfied. Everything I did.
Were you already a doctor at this point?
Yes. Yeah, so what was that? 2001, I graduated school. So 2003, that summer, spent a lot of time reading. And I read C.S. Lewis, Mere Christianity. Mm-hmm. And he talks about that hole in your heart that nothing else can fill.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, man, that makes sense. And he's apologetic. And I like that kind of legal, he makes an argument for it. He tells you, okay, well, if you believe this, then this. And I kind of went, well, that makes sense. I'm very logical in that way. And I finally just said, what's holding me back? It's not going to hurt me. If anything, it's going to improve me.
Now, do you feel like that your perspective of Christianity was off because of the way it was presented to you in that as a kid, and then because it seems like you discovered it, based off the relationship side of things, but the initial presentation was kind of like, what is this? You had questions about it or doubts about it.
That, and there's all different types of churches. There's all different ways of presenting it, I guess. Mm-hmm. Ours was growing up was very dull. It was very quiet. Right. It was very Anglican, and which there are Anglican churches that are more contemporary now or progressive, but at the time, it just wasn't exciting. Right. And I was like, I want to be excited about something. And then that's when later on some of the churches now especially are, people are jumping up and down. That's not necessarily me, but they're more excited about it. And I thought, okay, so we can be that way, but still love God.
Yeah, I mean, as a young person, it's very hard to, because it becomes more like a school setting.
Right, you're
if
sitting
you're not
still,
careful.
and they're telling you to hush. And,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a really cool place. So, first of all, I'd like to know on the other side, how did you end up becoming a doctor?
Okay. Something that we had just hinted to before this interview was I played high school soccer. I played a lot of sports. Throughout my life, it always seemed like God was steering me towards different things. I didn't know it was Him at the time. I just saw it as events, but hurt my back on the soccer field. And it's funny because I told you I actually help my coach now. With his
that's
back.
really cool.
But I hurt my back, and 8 years went by. Nobody told me about chiropractic. Most of the people in my family were, medical model. We all grew up, if something hurts, you take a pill. You go to maybe a therapist, see if they can help you. But chiropractic was never something that really entered the conversation until my 20s, and got adjusted for the first time and felt 80-90% improved. It was kind of like, man,
wow.
I always wanted to be a medical doctor. Why do I want to do something that never helped me? I want to do something that, bettered me and something that I can use to help other people. So that's kind of
now. Do you come from a family of doctors, or?
Dad was a military pilot. Mom's a teacher. I mean, my siblings and I are all healthcare providers, so we don't know where that gene came from that kind of steered us all into healthcare.
Yeah,
but we all ended up there.
No, that's really cool. It's still a form of service.
Right.
Now, you use the word healing.
Right.
Now, it's funny because in this little war between, I call it a war because literally I've seen this war between faith and science, you know what I mean? And even in the medical field kind of fell into that, But you use the word healing very strongly.
Right.
I mean, how do you see yourself? Do you see yourself like as a healer, or would you, because that's technically what you are.
I would love to think of myself as a healer. I think God, like I said, steered me to this in His way. And, whether I'm just the facilitator of healing for Him, we always talk about the power that made the body heals the body, but you have to unleash it.
Right.
To get all the interference out of the way. And that's not just structural interference. I mean, a lot of people, the interference is, it's right here, or it's in their heart. And that's where I talk to them about, if they do pray. Try to release these stresses and these things that hold you back from letting your body just work the way it's supposed to work. You and I touched on food. Food's a big thing. If you eat junk all the time, your body's being built up by junk.
Yeah, I know.
So to clean it out.
I know. I'm a witness to that one.
Yeah, so in order to let the healing continue or to happen, when we're little kids, you usually cut your finger and it heals, as long as you don't get it dirty or whatnot. So I'm just trying to help get those people and kind of steer them in that right direction. So if that's healing, great, but...
Now, how much of stress is a part of your practice?
How do you mean?
Like is stress like a, is that, does that cause injuries in ways that we don't know about?
Well, if you think about, we use the word stress pretty, we think about stress as, man, I'm having a hard day. There's what's called EU stress, which is good stress. That's just stuff that happens all the time. Somebody that you love walking into the room, that's you stress, if they just appear. But it's a good thing. Stress builds up to a certain point and then it becomes bad stress. Even if it's lots of good stress, you get a job change, you got a new job, but then you got to move and you got all this stress things mounting up.
Right.
They always talk about the straw that breaks the camel's back. Well, there's going to be that one movement where if you're a little bit tense and then you go and lift something improperly, it's usually a physical stress that causes the problem, but it's all that mounting stress, whether it was emotional, food, chemical, mental stress. If you got a lot on your mind, you're just tense.
Wow, and you can get injured in that sense,
right?
It's funny because I have a friend of mine that was in the NFL, and because of the partying lifestyle, he ended up getting hurt. And he was like a starter. He ended up getting hurt, but he said that he didn't understand it because he was working so hard. He was practice every day and things like that. But it was the extra stuff that he was doing that ended up causing the stress on the body. Because even pleasure, in a way, can still cause you to if you're doing especially if you're...
The worst cases I've ever seen in my office involve emotional stress. People that have lost a loved one, lost a child, going through divorce. Those are the people that I have the hardest time getting healing to occur in, because until they are, you never get beyond losing a loved one, but until they can deal with adequately, and I'm not a psychologist or a counselor, but until they can deal with that emotional stress, their body's not going to fully recuperate. So that's the hardest thing for me. Car accident, great, we'll get you well.
Right.
Emotional stress,
because the mind has to participate
their heart
the chemistry.
too.
Yeah, the mind and the heart. That's just, that makes perfect sense. Let me ask you this: when you first came to the faith, was there a challenge? Like, man, I'm a doctor. Did you go through that where you had to challenge, like, what? Because there's some people would look at the Bible and be like, man, there's some crazy stuff in there.
Not a challenge so much as I may call it a challenge. I just didn't know if I should or how I would incorporate it into my practice. I didn't want to turn people off. I take care of a lot of folks that aren't Christians. They could be other faiths or they could be non-believers altogether of anything. Certain people that come in my office where I know that we're all sinners, but to talk to them about, okay, this thing you're doing that's causing your problem, potentially, in the Bible it says that's sinful.
Right.
This stressful event that you're doing willingly over and over and over is causing your problem.
So
am I the one that's going to call them out on that?
Right.
I don't want to judge.
But you're in a place where kind of life is doing the judgment for you.
Coming to me for help.
Right.
So
that's an interesting way to see it. You know what I mean? Because it's like you have a place where you can just operate in that spiritual authority. I think when it comes to when people who are not in the medical field use the term healing, it's always just about praying and we're going to pray. Right. It's always something that God does, and and I believe in that. But I believe that what you also show is this realistic side where God is operating in all things, right. Where He's operating, saying, "Hey," because when He said laying on hands, you're literally laying hands on people, and
that is part of my work is the laying on of hands in a healing manner.
Yeah.
Whether it's just putting my hand on their back to comfort them, some people that's all they need, to help the emotional side of things. Whereas, and then the other side is the physical, you were joking about earlier with this the rock and crack. Because some people, they come in, they think that's all we do.
Yeah, I do. That's exactly what I thought. I thought you just come in there to give them an elbow, jump off the top rope. Right. So now, how much, if stress is one of the main issues, how do we get people to calm down and get to a place of peace where they understand what peace is?
Well, as Christians, we would say you need to point your ship towards God. He's going to help you get there. A lot of people think they're going to do it on their own. No, I don't need to. I don't need to see a counselor. I don't need help. I think that's the biggest problem I see is that people think they're going to do it by themselves, and they don't want to. Granted, they're coming to me for physical help, but they don't want my advice in the emotional or spiritual side of things. So, I kind of just go, okay,
right,
go to the big guy,
right,
if you believe in that.
And the thing is, I think that when the way the medical field has been kind of divided, like, okay, you work on bones and you're a chiropractor.
Well, you're including me in the medical field. A lot of medical people would push me outside of their model.
Really?
Because we address things from, okay, where's the cause coming from, whereas they're addressing more of the symptoms. We used to joke that MD stands for what's the matter doctor? Matter doctor?
Right.
Versus doctor of chiropractic, doctor of cause.
Right. Because you got the whole, exactly, like kind of like a heart surgeon. You know exactly what you're doing, whereas people go to more of a medical doctor to find out what the problem is.
This hurts. Can you do something about this?
Right.
Even if it's coming from somewhere else.
But those things are connected in your field. Like if you're having problems with your feet, a lot of times it's a problem with your back, or vice versa.
Of course, we're concerned with symptoms, but ultimately, in the grand scheme, if we want it to ultimately go away, down the road, we want to get to what the cause of it is. Now, and if that root of it is, though, if it's a spiritual or emotional problem, that's where my little challenge is. It's like, okay, to change their mindset, and okay, it hurts here. Well, your problem's here. And that's my goal, is to try to bring them back around and say, okay, we need to start working here. That's going to help this.
Because this had to have been amazing for you to discover, because you didn't always know this. So that means you had to, when you discover, how did that feel, man? Did that just hit you like, wait a second, this is all connected?
Yeah, it was, when you first go to school, you think, okay, just like we were joking about, I'm going to rack and crack people.
Right.
I'm going to shake them out on the table. Homer Simpson, they had an episode where he shakes the guy out on a trash can. And, but then I got there and I said, man, there's a whole lot more to this than I realized. And that was cool, though. It wasn't, at first it was a little scary just because it was like, man, this is a lot bigger deal than I originally thought it was going to be. I'm going to be helping people on a lot of different levels instead of just, dealing with their physical body. So
yeah, because, we talked about stress, and, depression is taking Americans out every day. You know what I mean? And it's a horrible thing, but because a lot of people don't know that they can be healed.
Right.
You know, and it's very interesting that it's like what you're saying about you're pointing to the whole reality that the heart is what's important.
Or the soul. I mean, I point to the inside.
Yeah. But I'm saying that the heart, when you look at it, you know, it does affect our body, the spiritual condition that we're in, the mental condition that we're in. It does affect our body. I mean, just to even know that you're, you know, capable of getting in more physical pain if you're not in mental shape or spiritual shape. That's important for people to know.
Right.
And I do believe that, first of all, it's very inspiring, because my whole thing has been trying to get more Christians to do things outside of the church, to be a part of the marketplace, get involved in the medical field, stop with the separation, because we do a lot of separating the two. Like, okay, I'm a Christian, so either I'm a pastor, an evangelist, a pastor. Like, what if you are a doctor?
My pastor talked about going outside your comfort zone. You know, if he's an attorney, well, you think the court of law, I mean, they're doing this so much, trying to keep Christianity out of the public place, whereas he's working in that place as an attorney. So.
That's amazing. Now, you said your father was a pilot and your mother was a teacher. What was it like growing up with that dynamic?
How do you mean?
I mean, as far as, like, you know, having a father in the military, it was like, it seems like a very disciplined home. You got a teacher and someone in the military.
I mean, I've always, that was my challenge, I guess, you know, giving into God, was I always had an authority issue. You know, when you're the child of somebody that is an authority figure, a lot of times you rebel against that.
Right.